Well, my name is Loomis Way, and I'm from Green Island Cove, a little community on the Northern Peninsula. I've been a fisherman practically all my life, but I suppose you could say I really started fishing in 1981, I'd say. I think it was 1981, so that's 33 years now I've been fishing, trying to make a living from it.
Before a period of resettlement, which began in the mid-1950s, there were hundreds of small communities and seasonal fishing stations along the coasts of Newfoundland's Great Northern Peninsula and southern Labrador. Most of them were not accessible by road. Families and neighbors depended on one another in order to survive the harsh conditions and to seek help with day-to-day living. They gathered in kitchens and sheds for social exchange and musical entertainment. Community values were passed from generation to generation and helped people to stay connected. The communities that exist today face new challenges as the inshore fishery has undergone significant change. What are the values that sustain generations of fishing families over 500 years? What role will community spirit serve towards a more hopeful future? Bard Harbor on the northern peninsula of Newfoundland was once a year-round community and now serves as a summer fishing station. Loomis Way comes here for a few weeks in early summer to catch lobster.
Well, this is St. John's Bay where we fish. A lot of islands, as you can see in the background, a lot of islands, and we start fishing 33 licenses going from this wharf the year. A lot of people from my community, some from the next Green Island Brook and on Flowers Cove, you know. It's a pretty busy port, but it's only for a short season. It's just a beautiful place to fish, you know. Since the moratorium, which was in 1993 in our case, the summer of 1993, up until that time my wife worked in the fish plant, and of course once the moratorium was called she lost her job because the plant slows down. So she started fishing with me in the next year, I'd say in 94, maybe it was 93, that summer, and so we've been fishing together ever since, me and my wife Brenda. Sometimes this seems all right, and some more times it's not as good, but we do the best we can with it anyway. So we're using 2 lobster licenses, so we buddy up. The trap limit in St. John's Bay for us right now is 250, so we fish 500 traps. We fish them on lines, we call them. We have 7 traps on a line. So we're fishing 72 lines, 2 lines with 5 on and 70 with 7 on. So we get up about 4 in the morning when we're lobster fishing, and 4:30 or 4:45 we're aboard the boat and we go and haul and sit in the 500 traps. You know, we're usually gone until 5 in the evening or later. But it's usually 12, 14 hours from the time we leave till we get in. And there's no sitting down, and you know, you look in your boat and you get a few lobsters. Well, I suppose it's worth it. You know, that's what we're here for.
Dwight Macy has been a fisherman for 34 years.
Well, me and my wife got a fishing license, same as me, and we fish 500 lobster traps. And when the season starts, every day this can, we all have 500 lobster traps.
Oh my God, I love it. You're out in the fresh air. I mean, everything is perfect. The scenery and everything, yeah. I don't like the stormy days, but I don't mind it. I'm not afraid. But I just, yeah, out in the fresh air and just all outdoors. You gotta love that. Not cooped up in an office or nothing. You're just there, yeah, doing what you love. Mm.
Hey, you see the pot coming out of the water? It's just a beautiful feeling. When you get up in the morning and you go and get aboard your boat and you go hauling lobster traps when it's like this, it's just a beautiful feeling. It's independence, and like you're your own boss. If you don't want to go in the morning, you don't have to go, but you go anyway. It's hard work. It's really hard work. But there's, at the end of the day, the satisfaction that you're trying to do something that was done 500 years ago. Money's not everything. Living in a place like this, and the traditional things in life, and family and friends, is an excellent way of life.
Along the southern coast of Labrador, for generations, the main industry in communities from Lanse-Eau-Claire to Cartwright was fisheries. It was a family business, which included women and children, aunts, uncles, and cousins who processed the fish after it was brought back to shore. These men and women worked the inshore fishery. In the Labrador Straits, they used small boats, 20 to 28 feet in length, and landed the catch the same day.
It was father, it was wife, it was son and daughter. We all did it. We caught the fish, we salted it. As a young boy or young girl, we washed it out of the puncheon tubs. We hand gaffled it to the flakes. We tended on this fish for 3 and 4 days. We cured it, we packed it. We took it out of the packings and shipped it to the boats, to the merchants. It was all a family. It was a family tradition to do what we were doing. Like, it wasn't just father did it and no one else touched it. It was father, mother, son and daughter. That was the way it was worked. That's probably why I'm a fisherman today.
Women was always played a major role in the inshore fishery. Even though they weren't considered the breadwinners at that time, but we always played a major role because my mother worked from dawn till dark. That's the way life was. The men brought the fish in, the women, the girls, the daughters of the families put it away and cured it.
In 1978, fishermen in southern Labrador got together and formed the Labrador Fishermen's Union Shrimp Company, with membership extending along the coast from Lansinclair as far as Cartwright. By 1990, there were approximately 1,000 members, all of whom were harvesters. Every year since it formed, Frank Flynn of Forteau has served on the company's board of directors.
Well, I started fishing with my father when I was 8 years old, and when I was 12, he put me in a small boat by myself, and then he towed me out to my trawl, and he going and my brother going haul the other one, and when they were finished, he come in and pick me up.
These days, Frank and the remaining fishermen of Forteau spend part of their season fishing for herring, a pelagic species consumed worldwide and used in Newfoundland as lobster bait. Today, the inshore fishery is greatly reduced, but in general, the fishing industry is still the economic driver of communities along Newfoundland's northern peninsula and in southern Labrador. The action is still centered around the harbors, the wharves, and the gear sheds.
We're all working together, we're helping one another, so you've got to learn to get along. You can't go fighting, because if you did, everybody split up, and then everybody for themselves, nobody gets anything. Because 1 or 2 people can't go out and tuck a trap. You need 6 or 7 people, you know, and especially if you've got 60 and 70,000 pound of herring or capelin into it, you need a crowd to move it. Because herring, it goes down on the bottom and it keeps pushing the twine down. The you're hauling it up, it'll push the twine down. So the harder you haul, the harder they push. And you're helping one another. That's the way it should be.
Yes, I'll stay here in Newfoundland, where I was born and raised. Where I'll hunt and fish and reminisce about the good old days. Where we know our next door neighbor enjoy a homemade rum. I'll stay here in Newfoundland and I'll take her as she comes. I won't live in a landlocked place and not wear rubber boots. I would be just like a tree if you tore out all its roots. I'll stay here by the ocean, inhale the salty breeze. I'll stay here in Newfoundland and I'll take her as she comes. I'll stay here in Newfoundland and I'll take her as she comes.
It wasn't oil back 60, 70, 80 years ago. It wasn't mining back 100 years ago. It was the fishery. It was the fishery from the tip of the Avalon back to the north part of Newfoundland and all of Labrador. That's what built us. That's what made us the people we are.
Our fishery have been declining for the last 20 years. And right now, I think that we can make an excellent living in our fishery with lobster, halibut, but our quotas are so low. Like we fish halibut, you'll probably be finished halibut fishing 1 day. Then catfishing, probably 2 weeks you're finished at. Herring, perhaps 2 weeks you're finished at. It's hard to survive when you can only fish for 2 or 3 months.
The main directed fishery for this part of Newfoundland and Labrador was Atlantic cod. Late in the 1960s, the inshore fishery began seeing evidence that cod stocks were starting to decline. This continued for 2 decades. By 1992, stocks had reached dangerously low levels, and the Government of Canada announced a moratorium on the cod fishery in Newfoundland and Labrador waters. About the same time, the commercial salmon fishery was halted. Within a few years, many full-time commercial harvesters had no choice but to leave the industry. Still others lost employment due to fish processing plants shutting their doors. The harvesters that remained switched to other species. Over time, the repercussions remained by way of reduced quotas, shorter seasons, and a range of other restrictions. In the 1980s, there were 108 fish harvesters between Lanceclair and Red Bay, Labrador. By 2014, there were less than 20.
You know, it's tough to say that we're a dying breed. And I truly believe that there's no plan in place for the inshore or new people entering the fishery in the future. But once we lose the generation gone on before me, we've lost all of the heritage connected to the fishery.
We're the last generation of harvesters in small boat. And this is the way it was fished 500 years ago. We're trying to keep that way of life here, and it seems like there's all kinds of obstacles in our way to prevent it.
Of course, the moratorium was the biggest thing, that ever happened in Newfoundland. I mean, that was, the do-all, end-all of the fishery as we saw it. 500 years gone down the drain. There was so much written about it, and so many songs written about it, and people were so sad, and they had to leave their homes, leave their communities.
No longer a fisherman's song came because I was thinking, my youngest brother-in-law was moving off to Alberta, and he was the last one in this fishing operation that we had. And so probably my opportunity for fishing or being in the fishery was about done. And that's where, when I reflected on that, and I put those verses on paper, and I guess the line that it all came from was that, from a long line he come of old fishermen. And then that kind of went on from there, and it got turned into that song.
The young man was angry. He wanted to know why a fisherman's life was not his to hold. From a long line he'd come of old fishermen. He fished off the shores of old Labrador when he was but 10. And the way that he captured that prize of the sea, what is life now in shambles, just a fond memory of the long lines he hauled. He knew them as trawls of 6 or 8 lines he'd hauled several times, how nice to recall. He remembered the old days in the spring of the year, when news would be heard of fish coming near. The cod traps were ready when the Capeland arrived. He tried everything, every dollar it'd bring, that's how he survived.
Like our communities are dying. People are leaving and going away to work. There's nothing left there for them. Young people don't stay. They graduate from school and they go. They don't come back. In our community today, there's not a handful of kids that walk around.
Loomis and Brenda have 2 sons, both of whom used to fish with them. Although their sons love fishing, they, like other young people, found it difficult to make a living at the inshore fishery.
2 of them at one time when they were younger, you know, used to fish. Well, I still wanted to fish. And my older son in particular fished with me for years. And, you know, and he had to leave because of the downturn in the fisheries regulations. You know, we couldn't make it, not enough money, so he had a young family, so he had to leave. But I'm happy to say that he's still involved with the fishery, working as a representative for fishermen with the Fishermen's Union, so I'm glad of that. And my youngest son as well, who's still on the sea because he went to Marine Institute and did nautical science, so he's a master mariner now and working on oil tankers, so, you know, there's still a big connection there to the sea, so I suppose that's good. But like I said, you know, that song, Boy by My Side, that really means a lot to me.
The water is still across from the mill where I anchored my boat all my life. The living was small, but I cared for them all, my son and my daughter and wife. For 200 years men have mended their gear on the wharves as the old ones looked on. Now there's tears in their eyes that can't be disguised, as a part of their life it's all gone. So I'll cut out my ropes and I'll throw away the floats that my father gave me before he died. My boat I'll haul up, 'cause I'm leaving the gut, and I don't have my boy by my side on the sea. No, I don't have my boy by my side.
The cod moratorium was especially hard on families living in the picturesque community of Conch.
Back the late 70s, early 80s, the fishery boomed on our part of the coast. Prices were good, you know, and there was work in the plant, you know, which increased in size and production capabilities, and a lot of these people came back home and they bought boats and fishing gear and they built new homes in Conch, and then all of a sudden, just as the things were really going good, in 92 overnight, you know, it all happened, right? The moratorium, and that was a big, big blow. But people never lost their love for the community, right? And they certainly didn't lose their love for the fishery, you know. Throughout the summer, though, to see those men so full of action, you know, all the time, so actively involved in the fishery, and then to see them just sitting around. Go down on the wharf where there should be no boats, July month, August month, and there were boats after boats after boats just tied to the wharf, absolutely nothing doing. And I wrote a song called Idle Boats. 91 was a year to remember, when the fishery first failed on our coast. For years we've been used to the good life and a standard of living like most. We waited from May until August. Our patience began to wear thin. For the cod we once caught in abundance got stubborn and wouldn't come in. The summer sun shone on the water. I'd sit on the wharf and I'd think of the hard times that seemed to be coming. Sure, it drove some poor fellows to drink.
and we hoped against hope it wouldn't happen. Our patience and waiting would win, that the Lord would look after his own boys, and the fish would decide to swim in. And their boats at the wharf are not idle, and their flags don't just sway in the breeze. We're beat to the island and all along shore, get out of our way if you please. For a while our impression misled you, but no more are we hurt to the core. For the harvest we reap from the ocean so deep, we know we will reap it once more. Yes, the fish have come back to our shore.
Well, I think the songs we sing speak of, who we are, and most of us came from fishing backgrounds, because all the communities were fishing communities, and pretty much all of our parents and grandparents were in the fishing boat. It's the one thing that we can do to keep ourselves together and to help our spirits, because most of us, our families have gone. So when we get together, it's to help each other, I guess.
I love it because we sing some of the old hymns that are related to fisheries, related to people, related to storms. When it come time for choir practice or singing, like I can't wait, because that's something that's taking my mind off the thing I cared about and the thing I did from spring to fall.
The 1960s on the Labrador Straits were a time when people helped one another survive the challenges of everyday life, ensuring there was sufficient food to feed a family, hands to repair a roof, or kindness towards a neighbor who was ill.
You weren't expected to, but you did it because you needed to help that friend to get through this journey in life. It was a very, very special time. When I can look back at my childhood, I worked hard. I'll be the first to tell you, I worked hard. But we had so many people who cared about each other.
And that's the way it was. And if you went down to the wharf and, you come in with salmon, somebody wanted a salmon, you just threw up one. It wasn't no such thing as, pass me $20. Here's a salmon, boy, go home for your dinner. And that's the way life was.
If somebody was down the road building a house, you go down, if you got time, you go down and you help them. And, you didn't need to be asked, you just go down and help them because they were doing something.
I can go in anybody's house any time of the day or night. They can do the same with me, anybody's shed. I suppose that's the special part about it. I know my next door neighbor, I know everybody here, everybody knows me. That's what makes it special for me, just the freedom. Go in the woods, go out and boat, go visit somebody, to go, that's the thing, the freedom for me.
Life has changed dramatically since the 1960s. Today, people still volunteer to help their community, but those who have volunteered for most of their lives see a change.
I don't hear anybody saying, what can I do or we do to improve and to change this? There's always, what's the government going to do or what's somebody else going to do? And that's where we have really fallen down in our present day, because in the past, my father's day and my grandfather's day, there was no such thing as somebody else. That's who built these communities, and our mothers and our grandmothers. And they didn't sit down and say, who's going to come in and do this? They sat down and they planned and they did it themselves. We have lost our sense of self-reliance. We have lost that whole sense of taking care of our business. We're always constantly waiting for somebody else. Well, I'm sorry. That doesn't happen. It's not real. We've got to stop thinking about money and start thinking about communities, find a way to sustain what we have.
We spent our lifetime, I spent my lifetime volunteering. Not for money, coming over that battery when you had your head through the window up there. Come driving down this highway from a meeting at 11 o'clock in the night, trying to see the side of the road because the weather was so blustery. That's not happening anymore.
Many people now have to travel long distances for work. They are gone for weeks at a time, commuting to jobs far away in the oil industry, mining, hydroelectric development, or major construction. They travel to Labrador City, Voisey's Bay, the Lower Churchill River, and for most of these workers, Alberta. They call it transient work.
Don't kill the fishery because it kills all the volunteerism in the communities. Here in Mainbrook's, in every community, when you got transient people, they only got 2 weeks off, they want to spend time with their family. You know, family comes first and everything else is secondary.
It involves encouraging the other people in the community, saying like, look, we really need you, we really need your help. And not just saying you need to fill this, this, and this and be just like me and fill that role, no, but looking at where people's talents lie. By encouraging them, they'll be able to use their gifts and skills in the community in some of these roles.
In the years following the cod moratorium, the Labrador Fishermen's Union Shrimp Company remained viable. With every shareholder a fish harvester, there was strong motivation to keep it going. By 2014, approximately 40 to 50% of the working population of the Labrador Straits still benefited directly from the company.
Because of our innovation and our outreach in trying to access other raw material besides the cod, we've been able to keep a fairly vibrant fishery on the go. And of course, you know, you got to have a little bit of luck on your side and the gods on your side, of course, because just as the cod fishery was going down, the crab fishery and the shrimp fishery was on the way up. So this company for the last 30 years has helped keep us there. And without it, we would have doors that would be closed, windows that would be boarded up, houses that would be dilapidated, and nothing left in the community, only senior citizens. And that's where we'd be today without the Labrador Shrimp Company.
Gonna put your trap on today or what?
One of the Labrador Fishermen's Union Shrimp Company's longtime employees is Joan Hancock of Forto. Every day she's on the job, she interacts directly with fish harvesters at the wharf in Forto.
Well, I love my job. I takes everything to heart, especially with a job. I maintain the job as if I own the business. And I am a happy person. I love fun, but seeing those boats coming in the morning, it is fun. See those boats low on the water, the boats fill up with fish and herring and cod. It is fun. It gives you a spirit to get up and work and get on the go, and it gives you a feeling that you've got something to live for.
I choose to be a fisherman. That's why I'm a fisherman today. Not because it's better than any other job or any other profession that's out there. I choose it at a very young age. I know what it meant to my community. I know what it means for me to catch fish. It means that someone else works because I'm here. If the inshore fishery dies on this coast, we won't have people working in the little plant that we got. There'll be no one there to work because there'll be no product. And that's what I'm talking about when I talk about the inshore fisheries. Inshore fisheries is the survival of rural communities in Newfoundland.
This is the eggs, and this is something, when we're hauling lobster traps, and all lobster fishermen do the same thing. When you pick out a berry lobster, we call it, you be very careful. You take them at the pot easy, and you release them over the side easy because you don't want to knock those eggs off.
Back at Bard Harbor, Dwight and Josie Macy are teaching a group of junior Canadian Rangers how to catch lobster. By spending a few hours aboard Dwight and Josie's boat, these youth are learning firsthand about lobster and the marine ecosystem.
And this one here is about 1/4 of an inch too small, right? So they're all going back. Put them back easy. Good job.
Through experiences like this, youth are learning about their heritage and seeing for themselves what life can be like working as a harvester.
Now fly up, we're down fly. Now, release it and twist it to one side.
Perfect, good job.
I always said that I wanted to move away, probably, but I've been thinking about it in the last while, and I think that I'd like to come back for at least a couple of years because it is like I do enjoy a small town life and a lot of values that you really learn from living in a small town, like especially like respecting your elders and you know, respecting your neighbors because everyone's so close together that you know everybody. I definitely wouldn't trade, you know, my childhood here for a childhood in a city somewhere.
And I'm hoping, against hope in many ways, that some of our young people will recognize that. And don't stay here because it's nowhere else or is the last resort. Stay here because we have so many opportunities and assets. You just got to look for them. They're there. I wouldn't live anywhere else. I just simply would not, and I've been around a bit. And I've been, like I said, I had a period of in and out. And I choose to move back to Newfoundland and to rule Newfoundland.
Keeping coastal communities vibrant means more than keeping the fishery going. It means keeping the marine ecosystem healthy, free of pollution and debris. It means maintaining the biodiversity. All the species that depend on the marine ecosystem make up the web of life. Since the 1980s, Eddie and Bessie Pilgrim have been helping to restore depleted populations of nesting eider ducks in Hare Bay on the northern peninsula. In 1988, the Hare Bay population had declined to approximately 50 nesting pairs. With the help of biologists from the Canadian Wildlife Service, and with assistance from the White Bay Central Development Association, Ducks Unlimited, and the Quebec Labrador Foundation, eggs were brought in from nesting areas in other provinces. Eddie, Bessie, and the other residents reared the eider ducklings in captivity and released them into Hare Bay. Several years ago, some of those birds that were reared were seen returning to the bay. Today, breeding colonies of eider ducks are thriving on several islands.
What I'm doing today is putting nest shelters out on eastern grassy rock in Hare Bay to enhance the eider duck population. Well, it protects them and protects the eggs until they hatch, and it gives the duck a chance to get them like up to 24-hour period from the time they're hatched until they're ready to go to the water, and gives them a fighting chance to get there. Yeah, let me look at that down again there. I feel it's worthwhile, you know, and it's something for the next generation. Because, you know, in a few years' time, I probably won't be able to do this. So hopefully someone will take the reins and continue on what I've been doing.
It's so exciting to come out here and see all the birds that's around now. And, you know, and thinking, well, you know, I may have helped to do this. It's pretty exciting. Everybody respects what we do in Mainbrook. They really do. They try and help.
Red Bay is a Labrador community that is now attracting visitors from around the world after researchers discovered sunken ships and abundant remains of a Basque whaling station dating back to the 16th century.
I think we need to hold on to the history that we have here and build on that. If we don't take care of those cultural resources and the memories of people, the songs, the stories that exist about this place, I think we will lose an identity. It will keep us from being sort of swallowed up by the big world outside, if you get my meaning. I think we need to hold on to what we've been through, what our history is, and that will help define who we are into the future.
If we lose hope, we lose everything. Our hope, our vision, and our beliefs that we will survive and we will be communities, I think that's what we have to hang on to.
And I'm sure what's happening here is no different than what happens in a lot of communities around the province, you know. And we're going to have some people play some music, guitars and accordions, and hopefully get a square dance on the go and show what the spirit of Newfoundland and Labrador community is all about. Well, people love it. People love it. No matter what's going on, as long as there's music, and you know, usually people seem to enjoy themselves, and you know, how can I say? You know, it seems to lift the spirit of the people for sure. A bit of music, a couple of dances, and who knows, maybe a couple of you know, glasses of syrup to go along with it. Should be good.
You're going to lead a much more pleasant life if you have music in your life. You got to have it. Keep your history, keep your culture alive, and the best way to do it is through music. That's what keeps people going. You got to have music.
It's a part of our culture, it's a part of our heritage. It's a part of us. It tells a story about us. The musicians come in, they can be doctors, they can be lawyers, they can be fishermen, they can be teachers. You know, people relate to them. It's about you as a person, and that's what we're about.
You can't beat this life. You just can't.
I feel proud that I know the words to these songs, and you know, and I love singing them. I don't know. I don't know what it is. You know, there's so many songs about Newfoundland and about the fishery that, you know, means a lot to me. I suppose that's the way I am.